Hello everyone, welcome back for another edition of Virtual Yin Yoga. I'm your instructor Mike. I'm happy to have you with me this evening. What I wanted to do for tonight's practice is the Meridian Exercises. I've taught this sequence before, but I still think it's a really important one to do. But the Meridian Exercises is a sequence where you take every single joint to its full range of motion. Now we're talking from toes all the way up to the neck. So again, we're going to work everything, take it to full range, just to make sure that we are maintaining the movement of the joints. Sometimes I get met with resistance when I teach this class, and I understand why some people do, because they say it's not really yoga, but in fact it really is yoga. Any form of movement of your body conscientiously is yoga, and if you're breathing with it, hey, there you go, it is also yoga. So when you're ready, go ahead and grab your props that you might need, a yoga mat. You might need some towels just to sit on, something that makes you more comfortable, maybe some pillows. We won't really be doing any too deep of stretches, if really any. There will be some that involve our wrists and maybe our neck a little bit. But again, it's not really going to be like our typical yin practice where we're doing a lot of forward bends, a lot of back bends, twisting, hips and stuff like that. Again, more just for these smaller joints. I feel like they are just as important to work, if not maybe even more important to work. I shouldn't say that. Every joint is important to work. But with the toes, with the fingers, with the neck, you know, these joints are often neglected. So I wanted to make sure that we spend some time on it and make sure that we work them. When you're ready, you can lay on your mat and close your eyes and just focus on your breath for a minute. We're not going to do too much of a heavy intro. We'll just close the eyes, breathe a little bit, feel all the senses that are going on within us. Just compare yourself. Feel what you're going through right now. And then once we're done with our practice, feel where you're at. When you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. And we're going to start our practice off with our toes. Actually we'll start with both at the same time. Just go ahead and spread out your toes, like as far as you can take them without cramping. And then I want you to clench, just kind of go back and forth with that, spreading and clenching, never to the point of strain, right? Just enough to start to wake up your toes. You might hear some cracks and pops throughout this practice. And just so you know, if it happens to you, it's not a bad thing. Cracking is actually really therapeutic for you. It's how chiropractors make a living. So if it was a bad thing, if it caused arthritis, chiropractors wouldn't exist. Now, we're going to work our ankles a little bit too. Go ahead and point your toes forward and then bring them back towards you. It's called flexion and extension. This is extension, going away. Flexion is when you bring something towards your body. So it's not just obviously in our ankles here, but like for example, flexion of the bicep would involve bringing your whole radius and ulna up towards the humerus, just so we all get that visualization. Anything that's brought towards you is flexion, pushed away is extension. When you're ready, does not matter which side to start with, but take your big toe, bend it forward and back a few times. And then I want you to turn it in and turn it out a few times. That's called passive rotation. And then you're going to rotate it into an entire circle. You go a few times one way and a few the other. Pinch and pull on the nail, and then you can move on to the next toe. And it's the same deal, forward and back, turn it in, turn it out a few times, rotation, rotation, pinch and pull, move on. Back and forth with it. There it is. I was wondering when they were going to crack. But when you are done with your last toe on this side, don't move on to the other side. We're going to do one leg at a time. There's going to be a reason for it. But once you are ready, you can go ahead and massage the sole of the foot, top of the foot, heel, Achilles tendon. Really give your foot a nice massage here. And feet are often neglected. Most times we don't really pay attention to them until they start hurting. And really that could be said about any part of the body. We usually don't pay too much attention to it until it starts to hurt. And I think the best way to make sure that these areas don't hurt is by preventing them from hurting. Simple as that sounds, right? And this whole practice is designed for that, to make sure that we are moving our joints so that they have full range of motion, so that we are less likely to hurt ourselves. So that's why this practice is, I think, again, just as important as doing like a hips or a spine series or a combination of the two. So when you're ready, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to rotate the ankle, but you're going to take your hand and rotate it into a circle here. You go a few times one way, you go a few times the other way. Just doing your best to balance on that, all right? It's pretty important. And when you feel your balance, you go ahead and place that foot down, and you're going to massage the calf and the shin. Right? So nice bit of massaging here. Might find those tender spots. You know, they feel really tight when you press in on them. Keep that in mind. Those are really important areas that you need to be probably spending some extra time on, which is again why I like to do this. This is a sequence that helps you realize maybe some issues that you aren't aware of. You know, this is something that you might want to keep in mind to help prevent an issue in the future. Hopefully I can sell you on this practice because again, it seems easy, but it's still really, really important to do. But the next thing we're going to do is work the knee a little bit. You're going to extend and point your toe, bring it back in, and extend, point the heel. Flip over here. This is all your knee can do. Every now and then people ask me, can we work our knees? And I say, this is it. With the exception of stretching your quads and your hamstrings, right? Those are the two muscular areas that control the actual movement. So when people do ask for knee options, that's what I'll suggest. Stretch the quads, stretch the hamstrings. The next area that we're going to work, though, we're going to start massaging. Quads, IT bands, hamstrings, inner thighs. Nice massage here all over. Again, we're not really going to stretch these areas, but this is just to wake them up a little bit. Find those tender spots. Like, for example, my quads, I can feel how tight they are, just barely even pressing into them. They feel like rocks. So obviously I know, hey, I probably should be stretching my quads today. It's like a precursor to your practice. When you feel like you've had enough of the massage, we're going to take the hip we're going to stretch our IT bands a little bit. Hug your knee up to the chest. Just give it a nice little squeeze here. You'll feel a gentle stretch going on here in the IT band. Hold it for that moment. We're going to rest the foot on the quad and very gently push down on the knee. But just take the note, how far does this leg want to turn out? And we're going to compare it to the other side. Now back and forth between the two. Hug the knee up, push the leg down, back and forth. And we got one more thing left for our leg. We're going to rotate the femur and the hip to its full range of motion. So go ahead and cradle your leg, and you're going to start rotating it into a nice circle here. You're going to feel the whole femur move, right? You go a few times one way, you go a few the other. Again, doing your best to balance. When you feel your balance, go ahead and place the leg down and just take a moment, right? Feel the difference between those two legs. Can you sense how much different this one leg feels as opposed to the other one, the one that we haven't worked at all? This right here, what you're experiencing, is energy. Piezoelectricity, if you want to be more scientific about it. I know sometimes when I say it's energy moving through you, it sounds very esoteric and people don't want to buy into it. But if I call it piezoelectricity, it kind of raises up an ear and people say, well, what exactly is that? But piezoelectricity is an electric current and it runs in your body. It's generated when you move, when you work your connective tissues. Anytime you exercise, you can feel this. But that's why I like to give you that moment so you can sense, hey, this is something that's actually happening. This is changing my body. When you're ready, other side, take that big toe. You're going to bend it forward and back a few times. You'll turn it in, turn it out a few times, and you will rotate it into a circle one way, and you will circle it the other way with a pinch and pull on the nail, and then move on to the next toe. The reason why we pinch and pull on the nail, it's said to believe that the meridians, which are your energetic channels in your body, this is according to the Taoist tradition of medicine, acupuncture, acupressure are based off this, but the meridians of the energetic channels in your body, they start and they end in your fingernails and your toenails. So that's why we give it a little bit of an extra squeeze. You know, when we're doing that. There it is. Just for, again, your academic knowledge. You know, again, you don't have to 100% just buy into this because I'm saying it. But if we're looking at it from an academic sense, that's why we squeeze the toenails and the fingernails a little bit. When you're done with the last toe, you're going to massage the sole of the foot, the top of the foot, the heel, the Achilles tendon. You're just going to rub everywhere, right? Find those tender spots. I can feel it right now in the sole of my foot, the plantar fascia. And I can guarantee you that's going to mean my calves are tight on this side too. Calves and plantar fasciitis, they're going to be tight with each other. The reason why is because the whole band of plantar fascia runs from the sole of the foot up the back of the leg, up your back to the top of your head. But the next direct area to start feeling that tightness is going to be your calf. We're going to rotate the ankle. You can grab that foot and rotate it. Full range of motion here. Even though your ankle doesn't really rotate, it's more inversion and eversion are the range of motion it does, but we still kind of manipulate it in that way. Go ahead and place that leg down, massage the calf and the shin. And like I predicted, my calf on this side is very tight. And it's especially tight right around here towards the Achilles tendon. Like I mentioned, the plantar fascia runs all the way up through the back of the leg. But I did mention it also runs up the back to the top of the head. So I can feel it right there. That's where I need to be working. So when I'm done with this, I'll probably do a couple of downward facing dogs and stretch those calves and those Achilles tendons out a little bit. So when you're ready, go ahead and we're going to work that knee. We'll take the full range. Extend, point the toe, bring it back in. Extend, point the heel, back and forth between the two. Just trying to, again, take it to full range. That's all it is. Simple as it is. That's honestly sometimes the most effective way of maintaining the movement, just by moving it. Now when you're done with that, you're going to massage your bigger muscles. You hit the quads, which are the top of the legs, inner thighs, the inside, hamstrings, back of the legs, IT bands outside of the legs. Just give it a nice massage. I should have mentioned earlier, if you have a foam roller, sometimes they can be really, really useful in this kind of practice. But honestly, in itself, using a foam roller, that's an entire practice. And actually, that's probably a good idea. Maybe I'll show you ways how to use a foam roller in your daily practice without you accidentally overdoing it. I do want to warn you, if you're using a foam roller too much, it can develop scar tissues. Good news is though, stretching can break up scar tissue, so it kind of like works back and forth. That's usually why I'll combine the two. But if you're doing it too much, it could be an issue for you. Very good. And we're going to hug the knee up to the chest. Nice little squeeze here. Feel your IT band stretching here. Give it a little love. All right. You're going to rest the foot on the quad, gently push down on the knee. I told you to take note. How far does that other side turn out? Can you sense a difference here? For me, this is the side that turns out farther. I have more external rotation on my left leg. I can get my knee to the floor, whereas the other side I wasn't able to do that, despite how hard I pushed. It's not because of having a good or bad side, because my one side is more flexible than the other. It's because of the skeleton being asymmetrical with the bones. Really important to know. So don't worry about perfect alignment, because you're not going to find it being asymmetrical. And just so you know, nobody is perfectly symmetrical. It's not just you, it's everybody. And then the last thing we're going to do with our leg, we're going to take our hip and kind of cradle it and rotate it into a circle. Really feel that whole femur moving here. Few times one way, few the other. Do your best to balance. When you feel your balance, you can go ahead and place that leg down. And once again, just take a moment here. We're going to start working our back a little bit just to keep the energy moving upright. Go ahead and we'll just twist from side to side. A little bit of back and forth action here. Maybe even lean forward into your twists. Maybe even lean back. Really, it's more about using your intuition here. Find out where you need to go. When you're ready, come back to your center. And we're going to start working our fingers. Spread them out as far as you can, and then you're going to clench back and forth with it. And also do the thumb on the inside of the fist. Thumb on the outside, thumb on the inside, just to make sure you're waking up those thumbs a little bit. When you're ready, shake it off. If you have more time, feel free to do what we did with our toes with our fingers, like pull it out, rotate it, bend it back and forth. But we're going to do an abbreviated version today. If you can crack your knuckles, go for it. There it is. Nice. I can crack my knuckles in 3 different ways. The classic of just bending your hands. I can pull them out. Most people can do that. The other one that I can do that a lot of people can't is I can literally crack the sides of my knuckles just by bending them almost inward. They don't really bend out, but they do kind of bend in a little bit. So if you can do that, go for it. Because again, cracking is a good thing. It breaks up what's called fixation. So anytime a joint is fixated, it's temporarily stuck together. But when you move it in a certain way, you hear that kind of noise, that the release there. That is breaking it up, creating space in between the joint so it's not stuck together, which is again why I love doing this type of practice. But we're going to work our wrists next. The next thing you're going to do is just rotate them. You go to full range of motion, right? One way, few the other. Do your best to balance. When you feel it, shake it off a little bit. And we're going to stretch the wrist. We'll do this one at a time to start. But you can take one hand, open palm, other hand, grasp it, and pull it down. And if you want, you could just place this palm down on the floor. A lot of times that's usually where you'll go. But it's the inside of the wrist that's getting the stretch here. And just on that one side. We'll do the other here in a moment. Find that sweet spot for you. Really important to work if you suffer from carpal tunnel syndrome, because you're directly stretching the carpal tunnel right there. So if you have it, you probably should be doing this every single day. Especially with the colder weather. You know, being that we're filming this right now, this is being filmed in January, but it's coming out in February. It's still going to be cold. The smaller joints will feel a lot more restricted and stiff, being that it's cold. So we want to make sure we're moving them. When you're ready, though, you can lift it up. And then the other side, same deal. Open palm, grasp it, pull it down. You can just hold it here, or you can always place that palm down on the floor. Inside of the wrist, right? Belly of the forearm, we like to call it. And just to come back to this idea of, you know, why we get stiff when it's cold. Consider you're mostly water. 70 to 80% of your body is literally water. And what happens to water when it gets cold? It contracts, it freezes, right? So that's why joints, our body tends to get a little tight during those colder months. Now when you're ready, again, lift it up, just move it around, shake it off. We'll do the back of the wrist next. You're gonna do both at the same time. Flipping the hands over to have the back of your hands down. A couple of ways to do it. You could have the back of your hands on your legs. It could be in front of you. Some people like to really lean on them. Or they could even be behind you. It's still the back of the hands, though, that are down to stretch the back of the wrists. When you're ready, real slow, let it out, move it around. We're going to work the elbows. This is all they do, right? They open and they close. So it's kind of back and forth with this movement here. We can make it a little different though, by going out to the sides. Now it's the literal movement, same movement of the joint, but there's different muscle groups that make this work, so sometimes it's worth doing both ways. When you're ready though, hands to shoulders, you're going to rotate the shoulders to full range of motion here. A few times one way and a few the other, just doing your best to balance on that. When you feel your balance, shake it off a little bit. And then we're going to do the neck. Let's do one stretch on each side, then we'll rotate it to full range of motion. Actually, maybe we'll start with the rotation first. Nice circle with your neck. A few times one direction and a few the other. Do your best to balance. When you feel your balance, you can rest your neck in the center. And the next stretch we're going to do, take an ear, does not matter which ear it is, but lift that ear up to the ceiling to feel some lengthening throughout the side of your neck. Hold it for a little bit, like 20 seconds on this. When you're ready, back to center, and then the other side. Lift the ear and elevate it. When you're ready, back to center. And there you have it, folks. You just took every single joint to its full range of motion. Toes all the way up to the neck. So we're at the end of our practice. And if you're ready for Shavasana, for corpse pose, go ahead and lay on your mat. Or you can always sit upright like you're in meditation. Just wherever you're comfortable. Just go there and close your eyes. There's nothing to see at this point, but more to feel and pay attention to. Focus on the breath. Breathe low in your belly, low in your diaphragm. Turn your senses, your awareness within. I told you in the beginning of practice to see where you are, feel where you are. And now I want you to compare it. How do you feel right now? What differences have you made with this practice? No formal ending to the practice. Stay in your Shavasana as long as you'd like, but that's officially all that I have for you. I want to thank you all for watching and sharing your practice with me. It's been my pleasure. Namaste.